It's time for Dodger Baseball. Live from Dodger Stadium, Sportsnet LA presents the Dodgers as they take on the Cincinnati Reds. Hi, everybody, and a very pleasant Thursday evening to you, wherever you may be. Welcome to Dodger Stadium, Game 1 of a 4-game series with Cincinnati. The Dodgers come in with a 2-game winning streak, both shutouts behind Greinke and Kershaw. The Reds come in limping, having lost 6 of the last 8. The Dodgers are 3.5 games in front of the Giants, and the Reds are 22.5 games behind the St. Louis Cardinals. One note on the Reds, however, their power really is their stolen base ability. They have 108, and they come into the game with 18 straight stolen bases, 13 of second and 5 of third. On the mound for the Dodgers, a former Redleg, Matt Latos. He was with Cincinnati for 3 years, had a good record of 33-16, moved on to Miami where he was 4-7, and comes to the Dodgers with a record of 0-1. He pitched very well against the Angels and pitched poorly against Pittsburgh. Kivas Sampson, another young pitcher going to the mound for Cincinnati. They've had 14 straight rookie pitchers go to the mound, and tomorrow night John Lamb is a left-hander. He will make his major league debut against Alec Wood. As far as Sampson is concerned, he has a record of 1-1. He defeated Arizona to pick up his victory. So those just a couple of notes about the ball game. Should be a good one, so stay tuned for the game and a whole lot more coming up right after this. may be. We're at Dodger Station, ready to open up Game 1 of the 4-game series with the visiting Cincinnati Reds. Kind of interesting that here we are in August, and we finally will look at Cincinnati, and we will finish them off at the end of the month when they come here. So the Dodgers and Cincinnati have not had much of a chance at all to scout one another. As far as scouting Cincinnati is concerned, it's really difficult because of the changing pitching staff. They have 14 straight games started by rookie pitchers. They picked up a lot of pitchers in the minor leagues because of recent trades, like the big one that involved Johnny Cueto. So for Brian Price and the Reds, it's a hope for next year, and they try to develop today and tomorrow until they run out of this year. Brandon Phillips, the veteran, will be at second base. Eugenio Suarez, a half a year in the big leagues before. Joey Votto, a veteran, at first. Todd Frazier at third. Jay Bruce in right. And Marlon Byrd in left. They're all veteran players. Tucker Barnhart, the catcher. And then you get to the rookie, and he will bat eighth. That's Kivas Sampson. More about him when he's pitching. And batting ninth, the will-o'-the-wisp, Billy Hamilton in center field. For the Dodgers, Matt Latos, and of course Latos has a strong background with Cincinnati. He was traded from the Padres to the Reds for, among others, Yasmani Grandal. And while he was with Cincinnati, he was 33-16. Latos with the Dodgers 0-1. He was 4-7 with Miami. He pitched very well, had nothing to show for it against the Angels, and got pushed around a bit by Pittsburgh. Brandon Phillips will start it off. He'll be followed by Suarez and Votto. And if anybody gets aboard, it'll be Todd Frazier. Phillips, solid ball player, an all-star, 288, 8 home runs, 40 RBIs. Hit safely in 12 of the last 13. Coming close now, he needs 8 doubles to give him 300 in his career. He's an all-time leader second baseman for Cincinnati, and that's saying something. The first pitch to him is in for a strike. I mean, when you talk about an all-time leader at second base for Cincinnati, you immediately think of Joe Morgan. But he's right there and hits doubles, home runs, and RBIs. Beautiful evening, 81 degrees, and the strike one pitch on the way. A hopper under the glove of third baseman Callaspo, and on through into left field. So Callaspo reaching to his left. The ball just didn't come up for him.
Shortstop number 7.
As he reaches, it stayed down. So Phillips a base hit to left field to open it up. And now here's Eugenio Suarez, the shortstop. There'll be an error charge to Callaspo, no hit. He fired. So a runner at first, nobody out. Here's Suarez, right-hand hitting shortstop. Latos on the rubber, backs off. Now gets back on. Phillips does a lot of things well. We told you the Reds will run you out of the ballpark. He has stolen 17 out of 18. And the first pitch in for a strike. You know, baseball is a business. They are teammates while they are together, but even while they are together, they are studying each other very, very carefully. So that I guarantee you, every Reds veteran who teamed with Latos figure they know how he pitches. And he's been studying them as a teammate. There goes Phillips. The pitch is missed at the plate, and he is picked off at second base on a good throw by A.J. Ellis and a quick tag by Kike Hernandez. So that's only the second time this year Braden Phillips has been caught. A.J. an accurate throw sailing right into the runner. He got tagged on the hips by Kike. So just like that, an error is erased on the attempted stolen base. Nice play by A.J. By the way, Yasmani Grandal not in the lineup tonight. He has a sore left arm, not the throwing arm. Ground ball to third. Callaspo is up with it. Gets it across. And we have 2 down here in the first inning. Joey Votto will be coming up, and we can check the Dodgers with the leather. Gonzalez and Hernandez, Rollins and Callaspo, Ethier, Peterson and Puig, Ellis handling Latos. So Matt has 2 down here in the first inning, and the very, very excellent hitter Joey Votto at the plate. Joey with 20 home runs, 54 runs batted in, hitting over 400 since the All-Star break, including 5 home runs. Votto leads the league in multi-hit games. Latos ready, over the top, fastball high, ball 1, 1-0. Joey Votto, a very talented all-around ball player. Is the 1-0 pitch on the way. The left-hand batter looks at ball 2. If it gets to 3-0, Brian Price lets him swing at least 9 times on a 3-0 count. He walks about 18% of his appearances. He has walked 88 times, and he has struck out 88 times. And swinging at the 2-0 count, he's done that 37 times and goes after it now and fouls it back. 2-1 the count. Beautiful evening, and the Dodgers and the Reds picking up where they left off. Boy, the rivalries in the 70s when the Big Red faced the Big Blue. Latos ready. Now the 2-1 pitch on the way. Votto swings, whacks it to the gap, but it's slicing, and it's going to be backhanded by Andre Ethier. Fine play by Andre, and just the fact that the ball was slicing, it was coming towards him, and he was able to reach up and backhand it on the dead run. No runs, no hits, an error, nobody left at the end of half an inning, no score. Now, as the Dodgers prepare to hit in the bottom of the first inning. For the Dodgers, Jimmy Rollins at short. Kike Hernandez, who was brilliant last night at shortstop, moves over to second base. Adrian Gonzalez at first. Andre Ethier just making that great catch, followed by Yasiel Puig in right. Alberto Callaspo at third. Jock Peterson in center field. A.J. Ellis behind the plate, and Matt Latos on the mound. On the mound, his name is Keyvis. That first name is Keyvius. Keyvis Sampson. He's from Florida, lives in Ocala. He was picked by the Reds off waivers from San Diego. So both starting pitchers tonight began with the Padres. For Keyvis, he signed with San Diego for a $600,000 bonus contract. Right-handed fastball is away. 1 ball and no strikes to Jimmy Rollins. Jimmy trying to get something started. Sampson comes back, and it's probably stroked into right field. Coming up to pick it off, Jay Bruce. So Rollins hits the ball hard, but he lines out to right field, and we have one away. Here are the Redlegs defensively: Votto and Phillips, Suarez and Frazier, Bird, Hamilton, and Bruce in the outfield, Barnhart the catcher, and Kivas Sampson on the mound. Couple of notes about Kivas Sampson, as we have never seen him before. He's 6'2" and 225, so he's impressive right off the start. In his one night game, he had an earned run average of 1.2, and his fastball in for a strike to Kike. In looking closely, the first 25 pitches, the opposition hit 125 against him. Boy, good run on that pitch. 0-2. And if you get into the 51 to 75 pitches, they're batting 0.77, and eventually 167 through 76 to 100 pitches. So he's been very impressive. Here's the strike 2 pitch on the way inside, ball 1, 1-2. Well, up north, Nationals are on the board. Yunel Escobar homered against Ryan Vogelsong on the first pitch, of course. Escobar, the notorious first pitch hitter, hits it out. So when Steven Strasburg goes to the mound, he's going to be leading at least 1-0. Remember, the Nationals have beaten the Giants 3 straight earlier this year. 2-2 pitch on the way. Kike Hernandez looks, strike 3 called. So 2 down in the first inning, and a very hungry Adrian Gonzalez coming up. Take another look at the pitch that nailed Kike. Fastball drilled, got the edge, and down he goes. Adrian Gonzalez, in his last 17 home games, is hitting 167. That is certainly not Adrian Gonzalez, nor was it Gonzo last night, who went 0 for 4, striking out 3 times. So Adrian checks in. Sampson's fastball, a little low, ball 1, 1-0. When Sampson was pitching in El Paso, here's the 1-0 pitch. He was a starting pitcher, and he pitched terrible. And he'd be the first to admit his earned run average at home in El Paso was 8.4. When he got on the road, he halved it with a little over 4. Adrian swings, doesn't get it, 2-1. And the interesting thing is, they were talking to him and they said, well, it must have been the altitude in El Paso. And he said, no, not the altitude. It was the attitude. And they said, well, why? What happened? He said, I lost my confidence and I let the catcher call the game. Here's the 2-1 pitch on the way. Off speed, swung on and missed. I'm sure almost every ball club follows the rules of the Dodgers. The catcher offers advice. It's the pitcher who calls the game. Here's the 2-2 pitch on the way with the right side loaded up, and he fouls it off to the left, out of play. No score, bottom of the first inning, game 1 of 4. For the Dodgers, they'll have Alex Wood tomorrow against the rookie making his major league debut, John Lamb, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of talk about the Lamb and the Lion, etc. 2-2 pitch on the way is taken just inside. Brett Anderson will then go in game 3 against David Holmberg, and Zach Greinke will go up against Anthony DeSclafani in the final game of the series. 3-2 pitch coming up, and it is taken for ball 4. So Andre Ethier will be coming up. Sampson will be pitching out of a stretch. Andre fresh from making that fine running catch on the ball hit by Votto. Hitting .286, 12 home runs, 39 RBIs. In and out of the lineup, but over his last 12, hitting .350. Sampson out of a stretch. Gonzalez short lead at first. Adrian takes a change low. 1 ball and no strikes. Sampson working on a veteran hitter, and he would be the first to admit that he is a work in progress. Here's the 1-0 pitch on the way. Kivas set and deals and misses again. 2 balls and no strikes. The background on Kivas, they say he's very polite, very friendly. He wears Bible verses, they say, on his hat and an armband during games. We'll see if we can pick that off. Here's the 2-0 pitch on the way. Sampson checks and deals. Ethier looks at a strike. Fastball in at 94. 2-1 the count. Waiting on deck, Yasiel Puig. 2-1 the count. Sampson again ready. Gonzalez no threat to run. And the 2-1 pitch is grounded inside third and down the line. So Adrian is on his way to third. The throw will go to second base, not in time. And the Dodgers have runners at second and third and nobody out. So with Ethier, they loaded up the right side. They really didn't have a third baseman. Frazier was way over to short. And Ethier just found that low pitch and slapped it the other way. Nice bit of hitting. So that'll bring up Yasiel Puig with runners at second and third and 2 out. Talking about Dodgers struggling, Yasiel Puig, a 40-game slump really since June the 26th. He has hit 188. His average right now 243, 9 home runs, 34 runs batted in. So Puig with first base open. Sampson set. It's a good test for the young right-hander, and his fastball is swung on and missed, and that one pumped up at 95. Sampson is only 24 years old. So in a tough spot, first inning, no score. Puig, who had 5 RBIs the other night, got a slider that he hit into the pavilion. Strike 1 pitch on the way. Sampson back with a pitch in the dirt. Nice block by Barnhart. And the count 1 ball and 1 strike. The Reds are 14 games under 500 on the road. And the Dodgers are 20 games above 500 at home. Good chest block by Tucker Barnhart. Barnhart has caught all of Sampson's innings. And Sampson has pitched well with him. Kivas looks down to get a sign. Right-hander set at the belt. Runners take their leads at second and third. And the 1-1 pitch is taken a little low. Ball 2, fastball at 96. So he's pitching, I think, his high mark once in a while. He'll hit 97, and he's been close. His slider has improved. He has a curve and a changeup. He has a veteran infield with Votto, Frazier, Phillips, and somewhat of a rookie shortstop in Suarez. 2-1 pitch, a changeup, and he misses inside. 3-1 to count to Yasiel Puig. Big change, and it just floated and just missed the inside part of the plate. So 3-1. Puig, I'm sure, is expecting a fastball. First base open, and Callaspo on deck. 3-1 pitch is swung on and missed. A great changeup. So there's a perfect pitch by a rookie. You're looking fastball. It looked like he was going to deliver a fastball, and it just died on the way to the plate. A frustrated Puig. Now he's got to say to himself, he's got to be throwing 3-2 fastball. Well, we'll see. Sampson again at the belt. Checks the runners. And the 3-2 pitch to Yasiel Puig. Fastball, chopper to short, onto to Suarez, and throws him out. So for the Dodgers, no runs, a double and 2 left. Nice inning for Sampson. And at the end of an inning, no score. Runners at second and third, and once again Latos comes up empty, which brings up a start. The fact that he has made 20 starts where his team is giving him less than 5 runs. Aaron Harang is the toughest luck pitcher, 23 starts where he gets less than 5. Right now it'll be Todd Frazier, Jay Bruce, and then Marlon Byrd. Latos going to work, no score, second inning. Frazier with 28 home runs bangs the first pitch to short. Jimmy Rollins on it and throws him out. Didn't have time to mention the same Todd Frazier who beat Jock Peterson in the home run derby before the All-Star game. And even more importantly, we want to salute Todd's mom and dad. Todd Frazier's mother and father have been named the Little League Parents of the Year. That's the 2015 George and Barbara Bush Little League Parents of the Year Award. So congratulations. You're always talking about the son. Now it's the parents' accomplishment. Jay Bruce, left-hand hitter. Dodgers don't commit exactly, but they certainly shift everybody over towards the foul line. 1 out, second inning, no score. Latos comes back over the top and it's fouled away. 0-2. Jay Bruce, his name was certainly bandied about all during the trading time. It seemed like he was going to go to almost every club. Jay, an All-Star in 2012, brings a lot of power to the plate. Fouls it back, 0-2. He's hit as many as 34 home runs, 32 home runs, and 30 home runs. His mom said since he was about 12, he always doubted himself. Well, no reason to doubt. He was an All-Star in 2012. Strike 2 pitch on the way, and Jay takes in the dirt. He's a big man. He's 6'3", 225 pounds. His father a master plumber, and his mom taught elementary school. Jay Bruce, 28 years old, out of Beaumont, Texas. He was a first-round pick by the Reds in 2005. Latos ready. The 1-2 pitch on the way. Swung on and missed. Bad ball up, and he went after it. Down he goes. So Bruce strikes out. 2 down in the second inning. Pitch certainly was out of the strike zone by a lot. And the batter now is the left fielder, Marlon Byrd. So a frustrated Bruce back in the dugout. Another veteran indeed, Marlon Byrd. Byrd will be 38 the end of August. Right-hand batter takes low, ball 1. Coming off a big year last year with Philadelphia. He had 25 home runs, 85 runs batted in. He's from Boynton Beach, Florida, lives in La Jolla now. The 1-0 pitch on the way, swung on, fouled away. Byrd originally attended Georgia Tech out of high school on a football scholarship. He's an even 6-footer, 215 pounds. However, he had an injury in his sophomore year and almost lost his leg. 1 ball, 1 strike. A broken bat, foul ball. And a big sliver of the bat is at shortstop, about 15 feet in front of Jimmy Rollins. Boy, that bat disintegrated. 1 ball and 2 strikes the count. Boy, Byrd is certainly accustomed to crowds. His father was one of 10 children. His mom has 11 brothers and sisters. When they have a family gathering, they have a family gathering. The next pitch is low. 2-2 the count. When they did the surgery on Marlon Byrd's leg, he was in a cast, couldn't move around very much, and his weight ballooned to to 315 pounds. So he shows you the grit and determination. He lost 90 pounds in 5 months. 2-2 fastball is low. 3-2 the count to Marlon Byrd. Byrd hitting .243, but he has 19 home runs, 41 runs batted in. Dodgers have 138 home runs, and the Reds 121. 3-2 pitch is beaten foul into the dirt, and the count stays. The Reds came in here having stolen bases in 18 straight and promptly nailed when Phillips tried to steal and was shot down. Billy Hamilton, of course, is the big threat, and we'll see if he gets aboard. 3-2 pitch on the way is strike 3 called. 2 strikeouts, and at the end of an inning and a half, no score on Sandy Koufax's bobblehead night. In view, gold seems to be discovered up in the sky. Bottom of the second, it'll be Alberto Callaspo. Then it'll be Jock Peterson and A.J. Ellis. Kivas Sampson, the young pitcher called up from El Paso. One thing that's worked out somewhat odd over the last few years, neither the Reds nor the Dodgers have scored more than 6 runs in a game, even once, against each other. Sampson ready and deals a strike. The Blue Jays and the Yankees have the same thing going through 20 games, and the Dodgers 19. 0-1 the count. Sampson comes back 0-1 and hits home plate with it as it bounces away with a changeup. 1 ball and 1 strike. 1 ball hit well so far tonight. Joey Votto hit one into left center, but it was slicing, and Ethier was able to catch up to it. Now the 1-1 pitch on the way. Callaspo pulls away, way inside. 2 balls and 1 strike. Sampson had some elbow trouble on the DL couple of years. Ground ball to third. Frazier is on it, makes the play, and we have 1 away.
Center fielder, number 31, Jock Peterson.
Jock Peterson coming up. Jock is another fellow who's been struggling, trying to get base hits. I mean, he's got company. Gonzalez is struggling. Rollins is struggling. Puig is struggling, and Jock, in his last 13 games, is hitting less than 100. So that has brought his average down to 219. He does lead the rookies in the league with 21 home runs. It would be small consolation. So with one out, Sampson ready, and the first pitch is strike, 0-1. Over the years, a lot of pitchers have had their shots at the Reds. The winningest Dodger pitcher ever against Cincinnati was Dazzy Vance back in Brooklyn. Strike one pitch, outside, 1-1. Vance beat him 31 times. Johnny Padres of Brooklyn and Los Angeles Dodger fame beat Cincinnati 24 times. 1-1 pitch, lunged at and missed. Of course, remember, Johnny Padres lost Game 1, the opening of Dodger Stadium. Back in 1962, the Reds were here. Wally Post, an outfielder for the Reds, hit a home run directly between the light towers and the flagpoles in dead center to win the game. So the Dodgers and Reds have had some great games down through the years. 1-2 pitch, a changeup away. We can tell you that Gregor Blanco led off with a triple. Matt Duffy singled him home. So the Giants have tied the Nationals and Steven Strasburg 1-1. Sandy Koufax, it is his night. He beat the Reds 19 times, but they beat him 20 times. 2-2 pitch, Peterson fouls it away. One out, second inning, no score. Brandon Belt walked, and Buster Posey has singled in the go-ahead run. So the Giants take a 2-1 lead against the Nationals. 2-2. Sampson ready, and the pitch to Peterson, high and inside, ball 3. Sampson has now made 34 pitches. He has A.J. Ellis waiting on deck. Kivas ready at 24 years old. And the 3-2 pitch is sliced foul off to the left upstairs. Just wondering if we could see about, well, there's something else to see. The sky beginning to change colors, and the mountains in all their glory. A magnificent view, isn't it? If you've ever been to Dodger Stadium at this time of year, it is really pleasurable. 3-2 the count to Jock Peterson. Sampson fastball away, ball 4. So with one out, he has walked his second man, and of course walks have become a very, very big part of Jock Peterson. He now has 72 walks. And remember last night, it was Peterson on a 7-pitch at bat, getting the walk in the third inning to score the first run. So Peterson at first, 2 walks and a double given up by Sampson. Here's Ellis, who shot down Brandon Phillips trying to steal in the first inning. Sampson looks over his shoulder at Peterson, who's edging off the bag, and the pitch to Ellis in for a strike, and the count 0-1. Peterson runs well, but of course he doesn't have the knowledge of the veteran pitchers, and he certainly doesn't have the knowledge of the rookies. He's probably never seen big right-hander Sampson pitch. 0-1. Next pitch is sliced to right, going back on the ball is Bruce to pick it off. Back to first goes Peterson. So Ellis hits it hard, but lines out to right field. And the batter now, Matt Latos.
Pitcher number 55, Matt Latos.
Latos with the Dodgers has 2 hits. He had 7 hits and a run batted in coming up from Miami. And the big thing, and you always look for that, he has now had 26 at-bats plus 5 sacrifices, and he's only struck out 6 times. So he's dangerous, but he also brings up a big strike zone, swings, doesn't get it, and the count 0-1. Latos is 6'6", 235 pounds. 0-1 the count to Matt. No score. Bottom of the second inning. Strike one pitch from Sampson. Check swing on a breaking ball off speed, and it was a strike, and the count 0-2. Dodgers have to be a little happy. Oh, sure, they're still waiting, being patient on Peterson. But it's interesting. Yesterday, he had that 10-pitch at-bat that led to a walk. Tonight, an 8-pitch at-bat that led to a walk. That's certainly a good sign for a young hitter to have the patience. Strike two pitch to Lados is taken a beauty. Strike three called, and that's the inning. No runs, no hits, a man left, and at the end of two, no score. Stay after the game. Enjoy the final movie in the 2015 Dodger Stadium movie series. We'll be celebrating Back to the Future's 30th anniversary. For more information, go to Dodgers.com/promotions. Matt Latos back to work in the third inning. No score in the ball game. He'll be facing the bottom three in the lineup. It'll be the catcher, Tucker Barnhart, then the pitcher batting eighth. That's Sampson. And then Billy Hamilton in center field will be batting ninth. Tucker Barnhart hitting .259. He is a switch hitter who does all of his hitting really left-handed. And he looks at the first pitch for ball one. He started at San Diego. That was Tuesday. Had two singles and a double. And he has hit safely in 24 of the 39 starts he's made. 1-0 pitch on the way, taken for a strike. Tucker has had a 7-game hitting streak. So Barnhart leading it off. No score in the third. 1-1 pitch drops in nicely for a strike. Tucker Barnhart against Matt Latos. Barnhart from Indianapolis. 1-2 pitch on the way. The left-hander hits it fair inside the left field line. Rattling around by the time Ethier picks it up. Barnhart is into second base with a double. So after Latos had retired 5 in a row on the heels of the era, he gives up his first hit. Barnhart went down to get a pitch low and out of the strike zone and hit it inside the left field foul line. He kind of took a page out of Andre Ethier's book, because Ethier slapped the same kind of a pitch down the line in the first inning. So a runner at second, nobody out. The pitcher, Kiva Sampson, will expect him to bunt. We'll see. He's only had 3 at-bats, and he has struck out all 3 times. Showing bunt. Latos delivers. The bunt is down. Picked up by Latos. The play has to go to first. So the sacrifice gets Barnhart to third, and Billy Hamilton coming up. Billy Hamilton is known for his speed. Hamilton has stolen 52 bases and been caught only 7 times. Hamilton with the bat, hitting just .222. He has 3 home runs, 25 runs batted in. Switch hitter. The numbers say he's a little better hitting right-handed. His 3 home runs, 2 of them were hit right-handed, but he's batting left-handed against Latos. First pitch low and away, ball 1. 1-0 to Billy Hamilton. Hamilton, a specialist as a runner. And you know, the Dodgers have a couple of young players in the minor leagues. They're actually training to be runners. Billy out of Taylorsville, Mississippi. 1-0 pitch on the way. Swung on, base hit to left field. So just like that, Barnhart scores, and the Reds are on the board, leading 1-0. So Billy Hamilton now there's a chance to really drive the Dodgers up the wall. He gets a base hit, a run batted in, and the door's wide open now to see if he tries to steal. So A.J. Ellis has already gotten Brandon Phillips, now really worrying about a guy who has stolen 50 bases. So this is when a pitcher really has to battle. You have a veteran hitter and a very good one in Brandon Phillips, and you have a speedster over there in Billy Hamilton. Lob throw to first just to let Hamilton know he's aware of him. Hamilton, not only a good baseball player, he was also a terrific wide receiver. You can imagine with his speed. And the throw to first gets away. Hamilton takes one look and keeps on going. And he's into third base easily. So you knew as soon as this game was going to start, the Reds will try to run the Dodgers right out of the ballpark. And they tried. Phillips led off, reached on an error, tried to steal and was thrown out. And now here, Barnhart doubles, Sampson sacrifices, Hamilton singles, and then on the bad throw in the dirt, an error charge to Latos. Hamilton goes all the way to third. There are pitchers who hate to throw to first. I remember years ago, the double stars for the Philadelphia Phillies was the Hall of Famer Robin Roberts and the left-hander Curt Simmons, and Curt Simmons never threw to first. He hated the idea that he might throw it away, so he never threw over there. The pitch to Phillips off the plate. Well, there is a pitcher today, a big name, John Lester, who is completely psyched out about throwing the ball to first base. It had been talked to him for a long time. Today, finally, John Lester turned through to first and threw it away. 1-0 pitch on the way. Phillips takes low. 2-0 the count. So it's enough to unnerve a pitcher. A double, a base hit, and then you know you have a rabbit over there and you throw it away trying to keep him still. 1-0 Reds, top of the third. Phillips waiting. Right hand batter grounds a single into center field. Scoring easily is Hamilton. So Matt Latos pitched well against the Angels, did not pitch well against Pittsburgh, and he is struggling here tonight.
7, Eugenio Suarez.
I guarantee you, when Latos was with Cincinnati, his teammates studied him carefully, knowing the way the baseball world is. Sooner or later, they'll probably have to face him. So it's no surprise either way. how well he pitches or how well they hit him. 2-0 in favor of Cincinnati. And the pitch now to Eugenio Suarez is low. Ball one, 1-0. Phillips already been burned. He is 17 out of 19, however. Talking about John Lester and the one he threw away today. Took him a long time. Here's the 1-0 pitch, swung on and missed. John Lester made his first pickoff attempt since April, and he threw it away. Yet he won the rare game with 5 stolen bases allowed, but he was able to strike out 10. The game gets into your head if you play it long enough, and if you have a problem and you really think about it, it just gets bigger. High fly ball to Jock Peterson. He'll take that. Tagging, but no play. Phillips holding at first. Catchers actually get psyched out sometimes of throwing the ball from home plate to the mound. You'd think, well, that's easy. They would. No. Once you start throwing them away, look out. Well, here's the great Joey Votto, wonderful hitter. You could talk about Votto's prowess. Batting .303, 20 home runs, 54 runs batted in. Phillips with 2 out. You wouldn't expect him to run with Votto hitting, but we'll see. Joey promptly fouls the first one away. Votto has a great eye. He's a very patient hitter. Joey averages better than 4 pitches each plate appearance. He'll go up there and foul them off. Very patient. Right now, he's 4.28 average number of pitches per plate appearance, slightly behind Curtis Granderson of the Mets. Strike one pitch to the left-hand hitting Votto. He takes in there. 0-2 the count. Joey with 119 hits, his 11 home runs at home, 9 on the road. 35% of the balls that he hits are line drives, and a lot of other outs are like the one tonight, a long drive in left center. So 0-2 to Votto. Matt Latos down 2-0, and Votto takes down and away. Ball one. 1-2. Waiting on deck, Todd Frazier. Frazier waits. Votto checks back in, and we're about ready. The 1-2 pitch on the way. Joey takes high. He had some eye problem, did Votto, trying to be a major league hitter, so he had laser surgery back about just before the 2008 season. He was the 2010 MVP, beating out Albert Pujols by 1 vote, and he also won a Gold Glove in 2011. Joey holds up, and no, he's not able to hold up. He strikes out, according to Mike Estabrook. So for the Reds, they come up with 2 runs, 3 hits. There was a throwing error and a man left. And at the end of 2.5 innings, Billy Hamilton leads the way, 2-0 Cincinnati. So the numbers of Koufax and Kershaw linked together along with Valenzuela. 22, 32, 34. Jimmy Rollins, then Kike Hernandez and Adrian Gonzalez, and ball one to the Dodgers shortstop. Hit the ball hard, lined out to Jay Bruce in the first inning. 1-0 pitch on the way. Sampson off speed for a strike. He's been clocked as high as 97. Got that in there at 86. 1-1 pitch. Rollins looks. Ball two. 2-1. Keyvis. Strange first name. Keyvius. 2-1 pitch. That's in there nicely at 93. And the count 2-2. Out of Gainesville, where he was born, lives in Ocala, went to Forest High School. Drafted by the Padres. Fastball, and it's going to be backhanded by Brandon Phillips. So Rollins could easily be 2 for 2, but he is 0 for 2. He's hit 2 balls right on the screw. Kike Hernandez struck out in the first inning, hitting .276. He's a remarkable player. To watch him play different positions every day, truly amazing. He plays center field, plays shortstop, plays second base in the same game if necessary. He made a couple of wonderful plays last night behind Clayton Kershaw. The 1-0 pitch a little low to Kike. Ball 2, 2-0. One thing about Sampson coming into the game, right-handers were batting .115 against him. He gave up a double to Andre Ethier, and he's kept everybody else quiet. Now he's behind 3-0. Sampson has walked 2. Amazing. 14 rookie pitchers starting in a row, and tomorrow they'll have a pitcher make his major league debut. 3-0 in there. So the Reds made some deals, and they were very interested in collecting a lot of minor league pitchers, and they have some now. And there's ball 4 to Kike Hernandez. 3 walks given up by Sampson. He's a little annoyed at himself. And Adrian Gonzalez coming up. Adrian walked in the first inning. Adrian Gonzalez is a .268 career hitter at Dodger Stadium. One reason that his average is so low is when he was with San Diego, and he came here in 2007, and it changed very high. Ball 1. In 2007, Adrian Gonzalez had 38 at-bats against the Dodgers at Dodger Stadium. And in those 38 at-bats, hold your breath, he had 2 hits, no home runs, and no runs batted in. Of course, he's improved dramatically this year, hitting .267, which is his career average. 2012, he hit .312 here, and 2013, he hit .303. Adrian looks, takes a strike. His first year with San Diego is when he really had a good time at Dodger Stadium. He was 10 for 28. That's a .357 batting average. But again, he is a .268 career hitter here at Dodger Stadium. 1-1 pitch is low. Ball 2, 2-1. So I guess when you know those numbers, you now understand why he's hitting .167 in his last 17 home games. 2-1 the count. Hernandez at first, and the 2-1 pitch to Adrian. Left-hander looks, it's low. So Sampson now trying to pitch around, trying to get corners. After giving up the line drive out, he walks Hernandez, and he comes back 3-1 to Gonzalez, whom he's already walked. Andre Ethier, who doubled, on deck. 2-0 Reds. Sampson ready. 3-1 pitch. Gonzalez, a ground ball by 2 men. It got by Votto and Phillips. Goes into right field. And over to third base goes Hernandez on the single. When they talk about that ball has eyes, that's exactly what they mean. It looked like a bowling alley on the right side with Votto diving to his right and Phillips diving to his left. Like pins in the alley, and it squirted on through. So Gonzalez comes up with a hit. Dodgers have first and third, 1 out. And Andre Ethier, who hit that low pitch and lined it down the left field line for a double, coming up. So the Dodgers so far have 2 hits and 3 walks, but they're looking for a run. Two to nothing Reds, bottom of the third. Dodgers at the corners, and here's Ethier. Sampson ready, fastball low, ball 1. So he's struggling with his control. He does have 2 strikeouts. He got Hernandez in the first inning, and he also got Latos in the second. 1 ball and no strikes. Gonzalez, very short lead. The same for Hernandez. Fastball, a one-hopper backhanded by Suarez. He's to the bag, throws to first for a double play. Wow! What a play by the shortstop, Eugenio Suarez, to backhand a hard sinking line drive. They want to make sure they're going to check to see if they want to review it or not. Boy, Suarez running to the bag and then fired to first. Close play. Ethier lunging, kind of hung in the air. And we're going to have to hang in the air for a moment to see if they want to review it or not, safe or out. So the players stand and wait. The umpires have now been informed that there apparently will be a review. And then again, there might not be. And from the looks of things, there will not be a review. A magnificent play by Suarez. It's 2-0 Reds. We'll be back. One of the first 40,000 in attendance receive a spray bottle with fan presented by Farmer John. For more information, go to Dodgers.com/promotion. Oh my goodness, look at my hairdo. Whatever you do, leave my bow alone. I'll take a little stroll. I have brand new slippers. I'm a Dodger fan and I am gorgeous. As we go to the 4th inning. Todd Frazier. And a strike. Todd grounded to short on the first pitch in the 2nd inning. We mentioned earlier he won the home run battle before the All-Star game, beating Doc Peterson 15 home runs to 14. And Frazier would be the first to tell you he got a tremendous boost from the crowd in Cincinnati. He's piled up the home runs. In May and June, he had 9 home runs each month. He has 28. 1-2 the count. So Matt Latos trailing 2-0. One of the nicest things that happened to Todd Frazier, and obviously he's a very nice guy, the Reds had a bat boy named Teddy Kramer. He has Down syndrome, and he was serving in a game against the Miami Marlins. And when Todd was coming up to the place, young Teddy, with a big grin on his face, said, "Come on, hit me a home run. I love you." And Todd Frazier said, "I love you too. I'll hit you one." And darned if he didn't go up to the plate and hit a home run. The 1-2 pitch low, and the picture of Frazier hitting home plate, heading for the dugout, and Teddy Kramer, the Down syndrome bat boy, he was ecstatic. And so was Frazier. Here's the 2-2 pitch. And Todd fouls it away. Todd has a lot of athletes in his family. His brother Charlie was drafted by the Marlins. His brother Jeff picked by the Mariners. When he was 12 years old, he was the outstanding player of the 1998 Little League World Series. Tom River, New Jersey team defeated Japan for the championship, and this one he bangs into the gap. That's going to go to the wall, backhanded by Ethier. Frazier on his way to second base with a belly slide, and he's in there with a double. Frazier not only has 28 home runs, that was his 33rd double. Ethier made a great effort but couldn't get him. So Todd Frazier doubles to open up the 4th inning. Barnhart double to open up the 3rd. Matt Latos has allowed 2 runs and 4 hits. He has struck out 3, but he's had a man on base in every inning. So here's Bruce, who struck out in the 2nd inning, struck out on a high fastball way out of the strike zone. Off speed and fouled away. That pitch 77 miles an hour, so he starts him off speed. 0-1 the count. Oh, and 1. Latos a long look back, and on his way to third is Frazier. The throw on a hop. He is in there as the ball got away from Callaspo. Remember, at the start of the game, we told you they had stolen 18 straight, 13 steals of second, and 5 steals of third. Well, they have just stolen number 6 when the ball got away from Callaspo. Oh yeah, 109 stolen bases for the Redlegs. 1 ball and 1 strike, runner at third, nobody out. Bruce trying to pick him up. Check swing, they're going to look, swing, says Mike Estabrook. It just seems so amazing to me. For many, many years, and I mean many, many years, you thought of the Dodgers with speed. Now, they don't run. They don't have the runners. 1-2. And Bruce this time strikes out on a breaking ball low after striking out on a fastball high. 4 strikeouts for Latos. And by the way, you talk about the Dodgers saying they don't run. Well, they've run their way to the first division championship several years. So there's a different ways to do it. But look at that. The Reds have 109 stolen bases, number 1. And I still find it impossible to realize a Dodger team is last with 28 stolen bases. I mean, Billy Hamilton has almost twice as many stolen bases as the Dodgers, 52 to 56. There's ball one to Marlon Byrd. Frazier down the line after hitting his 33rd double. Michael Brantley of Cleveland has 35. 1-1 to count. Looking back at Jay Bruce, who has struck out twice tonight. He had a rather unusual experience. So did Clayton Kershaw, pitching the dirt. Bruce hit 2 home runs in one game against Clayton, for the only 2 runs that Kershaw allowed that day in Cincinnati. And the Reds won the game in the 9th inning, beating Belisario 3-2. But that was then, now is now. Kershaw alongside of Justin Turner. Welcome back. He is eligible and ready to play. 2-1. High fly ball down the right field line. This ought to be interesting. Frazier carries, catch by Puig. Here comes the throw, and he scores. But it was a heck of a throw from foul territory down the line. So a great effort by Yasiel Puig, and for Frazier, he just did get in there. Watch Yasiel. Actually, he caught it the wrong way, and who am I to tell you that, but it's true. And he still got it that close. The reason he caught it the long way, he's running to his left. He was running sideways. And the best way for any outfielder, number one, is to catch the ball on the gloved side, and number two, catch while running towards home plate. But Yasiel going into foul ground, it was pretty awkward to turn around, and he still made a great effort. For Byrd, he picks up an RBI, and it is 3-0 Reds. Two balls and no strikes to Tucker Barnhart. The catcher doubled down the right field line in the 3rd inning. Got a low pitch away and just swatted it down there. That's a strike. 2-1. Castro plays him as a left-handed pull hitter, so Alberto is way off the bag, and that's what happened back in the 3rd inning. Whoa. Off speed. Barnhart almost fell down. 2-2. Dodgers left runners at 2nd and 3rd in the 1st inning, left a man on in the 2nd inning, and they were robbed 1st and 3rd, and a great play by Eugenio Suarez for a double play. That swung on, and down goes Barnhart. However, the double by Frazier, the steal at 3rd, the fly ball to right. The Reds are on the board, and at the end of 3.5 innings, lead the Dodgers 3-0. by the 2015 Jeep Cherokee. With an EPA estimated 31 highway MPG, it's the perfect choice. Visit Jeep.com today. And by Flex Alert. This summer, the power is in your hands. FlexAlert.org. 3-0 in favor of Cincinnati on Sandy Koufax bobblehead night. It will be Yasiel Puig, Alberto Callaspo, and then Jock Peterson in that order. Yasiel Puig made a great effort trying to get Todd Frazier. Will now start things off. Puig grounded to short to make the third out with runners at second and third in the first inning. 3 runs, 4 hits for Cincinnati, no runs, 2 hits for the Dodgers. And ball 1. Fastball, and a good one. 1-1 to Yasiel. Puig, when he hit the home run the other night, it was a slider. He's having trouble, at least for a little while, catching up to the fastball. 1-1. They're going to check, swing. 1 ball and 2 strikes. Up north, Bryce Harper fields a Hunter Pence base hit, throws out Buster Posey at the plate, but the Giants still lead 2-1, hitting in the third inning. Kivas Sampson, 24 years old, out of Ocala, Florida. Change, and he missed. So 3-2 the count. And again, you're thinking, well, he's looking fastball. Hitters basically always look fastball. You can adjust to the breaking ball. Fastball, foul back. Not quite. You can't call it an 86 mile an hour change, and yet that's really what it is. All right, he's seen one at 86. We've seen him hit 96 on the gun. 3-2. Fastball and a fly ball to right field. The Jay Bruce is there. So they're not fooling Puig. It's not as if he's chasing sliders in the dirt or anything like that. They're actually getting him out on fastballs. 1 out in the 4th. Alberto Callaspo coming up. Grounded to third, 0 for 1. Callaspo having a little trouble defensively. Committed the error on the leadoff man Brandon Phillips. Dodgers then throwing him out trying to steal. Then he might have had a play on Frazier when he stole third, but he couldn't hold on to the throw, and sure enough the fly ball scored Frazier. And talking about fly balls, Billy Hamilton will run this one down. So 2 out here in the 4th inning. And the batter will be Jock Peterson, who walked in the 2nd inning. 8-pitch at bat.
Jock Peterson.
Dodgers have not done well against the Central Division. They've won 8 and they have lost 13. Nor have the Reds done well against the Western Division. They've won 6 and lost 13. Right side of the infield loaded up. Frazier's all alone between second and third. The outfield just about straight away with a very light breeze blowing, oddly enough, from right to left. And a high fly ball to deep left field, back to the wall at the scoreboard to watch it go out is Marlon Byrd. But Jock Peterson hits it the other way. The Dodgers are on the board, and the Reds lead 3-1. So for young Jock, 22 home runs, 44 runs batted in. And by the way, the last time that Peterson hit a home run was the 25th of July in New York against the Mets. A popular, good-natured, quiet kid on the shy side. He has done well in his struggles. His personality hasn't changed. The Dodgers know he has the talent. It's like gold in the mines. They just have to be patient and dig it out. So Jock hits it out. It's 3-1 Cincinnati. And the batter is A.J. Ellis. Right. 0-2 the count for Sampson. That would be the second home run he's allowed, starting off in the league. Up and in with a 92-mile-an-hour fastball. 1-2 the count. Ellis hit the ball hard in the second inning, but he lined out to the right fielder. This one's going to go down the line foul. He hit it right at Bruce. Yasmani Grandal has a sore left arm. Oh my goodness, are you dolled up? How do you do? Where's Mom? 2-2. You want a ball? Sure, I'll take a ball. I'll probably take a bite at that ball later on when nobody's looking. Two balls, two strikes, two out. 3-1 Cincinnati. We're in the bottom of the fourth. And fouled away. Sampson hanging out in that 93, 94 mile an hour neighborhood. AJ checking, did I swing at a strike? And the plate umpire Ed Hickok said yes. Matt Latos on deck. Fastball got him inside corner, big league pitch. Down he goes. For Jock Peterson, weathering the frustrations of a long slump, he gets a taste of victory, driving a fastball into the pavilion. And at the end of four, it's 3-1 Cincinnati. On the field for a fireworks show featuring a musical mix selected by the Dodger players. For more information, go to Dodgers.com/promotion. 3-1 in favor of the Reds. Jock Peterson gets the Dodgers on the board with his 22nd home run. Reds trying to snap out of a losing streak. They've lost 6 of 8. The Dodgers had back-to-back shutouts, but that disappeared when the Reds scored 2 in the 3rd and 1 more in the 4th. Clayton Kershaw and Zach Greinke, that's a great 1-2 punch. Kind of like a Koufax and Drysdale. Meanwhile, Sampson followed by Billy Hamilton and then Phillips. Strike. Sampson's sacrifice moved Barnhart to 3rd, and he rode home on a single by Hamilton. Oh, 0-2. The Mets won this afternoon. They pounded the Rockies again, and the Nationals have not had a hit against Ryan Vogelsong since the leadoff home run by Yunel Escobar. So the Giants are leading 2-1 in the 4th inning. The Mets are just playing tremendous ball, but for good reason. They have such a marvelous pitching staff. They've now won 4 straight, 9 of 11. And when Washington took the field tonight, they were trailing the Mets by 4. Of course, when you talk about a hot club, you have to talk about the Toronto Blue Jays. They've won 10 straight. Yet the Yankees hanging tough, trailed by a half a game. Ground ball foul. And I believe the Yankees and Toronto have a big series this weekend. Toronto, they tell me, has absolutely flipped. After the trade of David Price and Troy Tulowitzki, the box office reflects the feelings in Toronto. After that trade, they sold 300,000 tickets. Their most recent afternoon game, they drew 46,000 on a weekday afternoon. Big trade, big deal, big business. 2-2. Big overhand curveball in the dirt. 3-2. Lados at 6'6", I'm sure standing on a 10-inch mound. Looks like the ball is coming out of the sky as Billy Hamilton waits. Fastball that will put Sampson away. 6 strikeouts now for Latos. Up there and down there. You always talk about a pitcher pitching downhill, and certainly Latos at 6'6" fulfills that definition. Now Billy Hamilton with a runner at 3rd and 1 out. He slapped a single to left field to pick up Barnhart. Remember, he was at first base. Latos worrying about him, threw over and threw it away. Then Phillips singled and Hamilton walked home. He's batting 9th. Will-o'-the-wisp, Billy Hamilton. Ground ball into right field. So that's more grief for Matt Latos. Billy Hamilton is about 160 pounds, at least when the season starts. By this time, he's probably lapped a couple of more. He put up such numbers in the minor leagues. When he played at Dayton a couple of years ago, he stole 103 bases. When he played up at Bakersfield, he stole 104. But when he was at Pensacola, he stole 51. So that 1 year, 2012, he stole 155 bases. So Billy, a rabbit, and there he goes. The pitch is low. The throw is not in time. So Hamilton steals his 53rd base. You know, if he gets on, he's going to go. There's no question about that. Just did get there. The tag on the hips, but the hand on the bag. Very close. Good throw by A.J. Ellis. A.J. standing in front of home plate wondering, are you going to review it or not? And now Tim Wallach is nodding yes. We want it reviewed. It was that close. Hamilton, doing all that stolen base stuff, has been caught 7 times. Here it is, the left hand and the tag. Can't really see the glove. Now you can. And the hand, I'm not sure if the hand might not have reached. Such a tough call. Now the hand, now that hand looked like it was there. But it's so close, and of course the umpire only had one shot. The umpire who made the call is the veteran, the crew chief, Dana DeMuth. Either way, you get an idea of just how tough it is to be an umpire. Wow. Dana DeMuth, the crew chief, making that call at second base. Dana has been umpiring 32 years. So you certainly had an expert out there. And it's going to take a while to see whether he was right or wrong. A tribute to him in the fact that it's going to take a while. It was that close. Ed Hickok, who is the plate umpire tonight, has umpired coming up 11 years. So Hamilton stands and waits. Another look. Left hand and the gloved hand. Boy. There are umpires in New York, and I'm sure they're talking about how tough a call that was. The knees of Rollins, of course, takes away the glove. You can't really tell. Even now you can't tell where the hand is. It's impossible. Well, they're accustomed to it. Day after day, they're asked to walk a high wire, and it is remarkable how accurate they are. And here we are with millions of dollars of equipment, slow-mo, slow-mos, etc. They have a fraction of a second to call it. Wow. Imagine the pressure when you get into the playoffs and take it all the way to the World Series. Take it to Game 7 and have a play, and oh my goodness. So they're still checking. The umpires in New York are doing the same thing. Dodger videographer deciding it was worth an argue or review. Well, they're close. The headsets are coming off and safe. So Hamilton steals second base. And with one out, Brandon Phillips coming up to try to pick him up. Brandon Phillips reached on an error in the first inning by Callaspo, single to center in the third. One out, Hamilton at second. They have to worry about him stealing third. So Callaspo is at a little bit of a disadvantage with a lot of runners at second base and a right-hand hitter at the plate. Callaspo can play deep, but he can't afford to play deep, not with Hamilton. That also means Hernandez has to hold him on. 0-1 to Brandon. So Hamilton causes a lot of trouble. With a right-hand hitter, Rollins can't do anything about him. So it's up to Kike Hernandez. Phillips, a very, very knowledgeable hitter, and that's a sizable gap open on the right side. Oh and 2. And they're worrying about him, as well they should. Steals at third so far this year. Billy Hamilton is 16 for 16 in stealing third. A line drive down the right field line. You knew he was going to go that way, the way the Dodger infield was set up. So Brandon doubles to right. Hamilton breezes in, and it's 4-1 Cincinnati.
Shortstop, Eugenio Suarez.
So Phillips goes the other way for his second hit. Picks up a run batted in. Hamilton gets a welcome home in the dugout. And the Reds are on the board. Hamilton, seeing that Phillips got that low pitch and bangs it to right, came home easily. So now Eugenio Suarez, who has grounded to third, fly to center, and made the huge play in the third inning, taking a base hit away from Ethier and turning it into an inning-ending double play. Right. Suarez came into the game hitting .299. Only played 50 games. 4-1 in favor of Cincinnati. We're in the fifth inning. Pulled over third down the line. Fair ball. Having to come back to get it is Ethier. Phillips will score. Into second base standing with a double goes Suarez. And it is 5-1 Cincinnati. So they're pushing their former Red Leg teammate Matt Latos all around the block here. So in the inning, Sampson struck out, but Hamilton singled and stole second. Phillips doubled him in. Now Suarez doubles in Phillips. Just over the bag and down the line. So the Reds came in here struggling. They'd lost 6 out of 8. Dodgers had to feel pretty good. They had the back-to-back shutouts, and boom, they're down 5-1. Luis Avilan, who closed the game the other night, is up now in the Dodger bullpen. So now you get Joey Votto, one of the top hitters in the game, with a runner at second, 1 out, 2 runs in. Votto's from, well, he was born in Toronto and lives in Ontario. Joey is 32 years old come September, 6'3", 220, and originally a second-round pick by the Reds back in 2002. A very humble player, always willing to do something very quietly for something good. And as he says, baseball is just my job. I take pride in work, harboring ambition, try to just quietly go about myself and play the game. He is absolutely captivated, has always been, by Ted Williams. He's read just about every book by him and about him, and they're going to walk Joey intentionally. So first and second in a moment, and the batter will be Todd Frazier, who is grounded out and doubled. Votto, understandably, gets a lot of walks. As we told you, he now has more walks than strikeouts. 89 walks, 88 strikeouts. There aren't very many players in this day and age to come close to that. So Latos in a lot of trouble. He's also due to lead off in the bottom of the fifth inning. So Votto and Suarez out there on the baselines. Frazier grounded to short, double, stole third, and came home on a fly ball. And ball one. Frazier came in hitting .260. You make a mistake with him and you're in trouble. 28 home runs, 71 runs batted in. Check swing. We mentioned it earlier, how parents are always so proud of their children playing in Little League. Well, you have a major leaguer who is so proud of his mom and dad, they have been named Little League Parents of the Year, Mr. and Mrs. Frazier and their son Todd. And ball three. Charlie and Joan Frazier, who live in Toms River, had 3 sons who played Little League baseball and eventually drafted. And of course, Frazier is now a big star. He went to Rutgers University. 3-0. He could swing. Yes. Fouled it back. So they let Frazier swing and he fouls it off. 3-1. Taking 3-2. Justin Turner just dying to get into a ball game, and it looks like he'll finally get the chance. 3-2. Got him. Off-speed pitch, and Frazier frozen at the plate. So that was a great pitch by Latos, who, by the way, has struck out 7, but he's trailing 5-1. Off speed, floated in there nicely. So Frazier goes back empty-handed. Now let's see. We just saw Justin Turner with a bat and a ball and a glove, and it looks like there'll be a double switch. The pitcher spot is due up. What'll happen is Turner will take over at third base and get a welcome home ovation from the crowd. And we're expecting to see if they bring in a reliever for Matt Latos. Yep, Latos is going out. Last we looked, Avalon was throwing in the pen. We'll be back. Your Southern California Toyota dealers. Now at Toyota's annual clearance event, get amazing deals on every new Toyota. Justin Turner returning to the lineup, taking over at third base. He will bat ninth and lead off the 5th inning. Luis Avilan, the pitcher, will go into Callaspo's spot as Matt Latos leads. Matt Latos went 4 2/3 innings, gave up 5 runs, 7 hits, struck out 7. Interesting for him, for instance, with Sampson, the pitcher, leading off in the inning, it took him 8 pitches to take care of Sampson. Then Billy Hamilton singled and stole second. Brandon Phillips doubled on an 0-2 pitch, and Suarez doubled on an 0-1 pitch. Suarez out there at second, Joey Votto at first, and here's Jay Bruce. Now Bruce struck out twice, but both times against Latos, once on a high fastball and the next time a breaking ball in the dirt. So let's see about Avilan. Hard ground ball right to Gonzalez to the bag, and that's the inning. So 1 pitch and the final out. However, the Reds come up with 2 more. So they've gone 2 in the 3rd, 1 in the 4th, 2 in the 5th, and lead 5-1. The best moments of the week on and off the field. Don't miss Dodger Clubhouse Monday at 7 on Sportsnet LA. Justin Turner, welcome back. Most folks thought, well, he had a slight infection, but it was very, very serious. And it is good news that he's back and able to play. Activated today and dropped in the game right away. Boy, they missed him, hitting .323, 13 home runs, 44 runs batted in. Now he's looking at a pitcher he's never seen, Kivas Sampson. Ball 1. Sampson allowed 1 run, the home run to Jock Peterson, through 4 innings. Fastball hit in the air to right field and deep. Bruce to the track, and this one is off the wall. Great throw, and Turner will have to hold at first base. But welcome back to Justin as he singles to right in his first at bat. What is it about hitting? Just like riding a bicycle, huh? You never forget.
Jimmy Rollins.
Just missing a home run in the glove of an anxious fan. So Turner, the leadoff single, and the batter now, Jimmy Rollins. Rollins 0 for 2, and it's a tough 0 for 2. He lined out to right, and he lined out to Brandon Phillips. Turner, short lead at first, and ball one to Rollins. 14 rookie pitchers in a row have taken the mound for the Reds, 14 straight. And tomorrow night, a young man will make his major league debut, John Lamb. And ball two, 2-0. Alex Wood will be on the mound for the Dodgers. There's Alex. Two balls and no strikes. Rollins with Kike Hernandez hitting back of him. Fastball, a chopper to first, and drop, picked up, and Votto has to step on the bag. He was in a hurry to grab the bag and the ball and then start the play at second base. The force would have been taken off, but in such a hurry, he blows a double play. He wants to touch that bag desperately, but he doesn't have the ball. So a break there. Instead of a double play, we have one out, a runner at second, and Kike Hernandez checking in. Hernandez struck out and walked. 0 for 1. Five runs, 7 hits for the Reds. 1 run, 4 hits for the Dodgers. That's a strike to Kike. 0-1. Turner taking a pretty good lead. Pitch off the plate. 1-1. Brandon Phillips can't do very much about holding him on. And of course, Suarez, the shortstop, is out on the rim. So Justin backing away. 1 ball, 1 strike. Ball 2. Sampson now has made 84 pitches. He made 24 in the very first inning. Dodgers have had at least 1 man on base in every inning. Peterson didn't stay on base long, and he ran out his home run. And he's behind 3-1. Adrian Gonzalez on deck. Sampson came into the game where he had walked 4 and struck out 12. Turner at second base, 1 out. And a line drive base hit. Charging it is Bird. Stopping at third is Turner. And the Dodgers have runners at first and third with 1 out. And Adrian Gonzalez coming up.
First baseman Adrian Gonzalez.
Fastball right out over the plate. And Kike knew what to do with it. Turner stopped at third. Ball club down by 4 and 1 out. So Gonzalez, who has walked and single, coming up. And I'm sure in the Cincinnati dugout, they're getting a little anxious about the rookie Kivas Sampson. No one throwing in the Reds bullpen, not yet. First and third, 1 out. Gonzalez walked, single to right. Ball 1. That's one thing that's happening to Sampson. He is not aggressively taking charge. His first pitch now has put him behind quite often. 1 ball and no strike. And now he's behind 2-0. And they're going to move around in the Cincinnati bullpen. Jeff Pico, the pitching coach, A little anxious. So we'll have activity down there in a minute. Ryan Matthews, a right-hander, is the first man up in the Cincinnati pen. All right, Sampson, who's had to work out of the stretch a lot. Dodgers had second and third in the first inning. They had a runner on in the second. They had first and third in the third. And now they have first and third in the fifth. And yet they had just one run. 2-0. And a foul ball out of play. Interesting the way the pitching staff is now with Cincinnati. They have all these rookie pitchers. The bullpen is a veteran staff, but even with Aroldis Chapman's earned run average of 1.6, the Reds bullpen is ranked 12th in the league, and the ERA of 3.9. 2-1. Ball 3. The Dodger pen 13th with an ERA of 4.1. Andre Ethier waits, and for Sampson, he's lost the strike zone. One pitch away from loading him up for Ethier. 3-1. And a drive to left field and deep on his horse's bird to the track to make the catch. Tagging up his Turner to score. Hernandez goes back to first. Big play out there by Marlon Byrd. Adrian gets the RBI, and it is 5-2 Cincinnati. And for Turner, welcome back, Justin. Pitch is down and away. Adrian goes after it and almost muscled it all the way. I mean, Byrd made a wonderful play. All Turner had to do is watch the catch. They're not going to have a play on him. They want to keep Hernandez at first. So Jeff Pico, yeah, that's right, P-I-C-O, talking to Sampson. 5-2 Cincinnati, and the batter is Andre Ethier. So they'll try to stick with Sampson. Ethier double to right and looked like he had another base hit, and it was a magnificent play by Eugenio Suarez, the shortstop, who backhanded the ball to take a hit away and then ran and turned it into a double play. And he finds himself with a first pitch strike. Here's the play on Ethier. Looks like base hit. Look at that. Now to the bag and getting it first as well. So a huge play in the third inning. Reds lead 5-2. 0-1 to Andre. 1-1. The Turner single. Took second on a ground ball. Took third on a base hit. Scored on a fly ball to left. 1 ball and 1 strike. Change away. 2-1. Eva Sampson battling Andre Ethier. And he's behind again, 3-1. So he's really fighting his control. It's costing him a lot of pitches, and all of a sudden he's made 95 pitches, and that would mean 19 here in the 5th inning. So he's not had an easy inning all night. 3-1. On deck, Yasiel Puig. High fly ball. It's playable. Going back to the track is Billy Hamilton. Interesting how the crowd always looks at the ball with their hearts. They want to see what they want to see, and they don't get it if they watch the outfielder. However, Turner comes back, gets the Dodgers a run, and at the end of 5, it's 5-2 Cincinnati. On this day in 1951, the Dodgers had a stunt. If you had a musical instrument and you brought it to the ball game, you would be allowed in free. There were 2,000 fans who brought musical instruments and brought them even if they know how to play them. In fact, one fella pulled up with a piano on a truck, and they said, hey, if you can get it in here, you're welcome. I don't know if he ever did. That was the night we learned the word cacophony, screeching noise. Let's go back to this one. Justin Turner comes back, hits the first pitch for a base hit. Adrian Gonzalez picks him up with a long fly ball to left. It's 5-2 Reds, and we're in the 6th inning. Good changeup. Marlon Byrd, who made a very good catch on that ball hit by Gonzalez. That thing really carried, and Marlon made a huge play. When it's as warm as this, the baseball usually carries a lot more than normal. 0-1. 1-1, especially at night. Todd Frazier stole third tonight for the Reds, and you don't see clubs steal third that often. For the Reds lead, they've had 31 steals of third. They're 31 of 32. Arizona and Kansas City and Tampa Bay, they stole 20, but they've been caught a few times. But of course, the spearhead in the running game, Billy Hamilton. One and two. So Avalon comes in, nails Bruce to end the 5th, and starts off by striking out Byrd here in the 6th. 8 Reds have struck out. The other night when Clayton Kershaw pitched against Ryan Zimmerman, we had 20 strikeouts, 10 for each team. Kershaw had 8, Zimmerman had 9. Here's Tucker Barnhart, the catcher. He doubled the left, scored a run, and struck out. Must be quite a thrill to be a young catcher with Cincinnati. And all you will hear about is Johnny Bench. Ball 2. Great names out of the past. Great players. Johnny Bench, Bill Morgan, Baby Concepcion, Tony Perez. Then people like Frank Robinson, Vada Pinson, Ken Griffey Jr., George Foster. Big Red. Ted Kluszewski going way back. They've had some great ones. 3-0. Right, 3-1. Luis Avilan, he's from Caracas in Venezuela. 6'2", 200-pounder. Just turned 26. Originally signed by the Braves. Fouled away. Made his debut 2012 against the New York Mets. Faced one batter. Struck him out. Dodgers have had a lot of trouble with Sampson, and Sampson has certainly been wide open for trouble. Sampson's had 9 3-ball counts in 5 innings, and yet the Dodgers have only 2 runs. And ball 4. Jason Bourgeois will be coming up. He will bat for Sampson. Remember, Sampson was hitting in the number 8 slot. So Avilan walks, and here comes Bourgeois.
It's hitting for the Reds, number 30, Jason Bourgeois.
Jason Bourgeois is from Houston, Texas. He's on the small side as Sampson gets some hugs. Goes out having pitched 5 and a chance to win. Bourgeois is 5'9", about 195 pounds. And a strike. He was the number 2 pick by the Rangers. Ryan Matthews still in the pen. 0-1 the count. Bourgeois has played for the White Sox, the Brewers, the Astros, the Rays, and now the Reds. And he gets one into right field. So just like that, Reds have runners at first and second, and Billy Hamilton coming up. Bourgeois' dad had a good job in Houston. His dad worked at the ticket booth at the Astrodome. Now he plays his way in. So first and second, 1 out, and Billy Hamilton checking in. Hamilton is a switch hitter. His numbers are better right-handed, hitting .231. 2 of his 3 home runs hit right-handed. You see a fellow like Hamilton, you know how fast he runs. He slaps that thing foul out of play. So the first thing you think about is, does he ever hit into a double play? And the answer is yes. Billy Hamilton is grounded into 4 double plays. No one can beat the ball. Five to 2 favor the Reds, trying to get some more against Louis Abilon. Fastball whacked into left field, base hit. Barnhart will stop at third, and the bases are loaded. So Avalon came in to get Bruce in the 5th inning, then led off the 6th, striking out Bird, and now he's in trouble. For Hamilton, batting in the 9th slot, he is 3 for 3 with a stolen base. Nowhere for him to run now, however. So here comes Mattingly, and he's going to make another change, and it will be a double switch. Carl Crawford will go into the game. Andre Ethier made the last out. So that means Ethier comes out. Crawford will take over in left, and it looks like the Dodgers will go to the bullpen for Pedro Baez. So Baez will be coming in with the bases loaded, 1 out, trying to prevent this game from running away. And we're heading back in a moment. Friday night, Saturday night, and Saturday night's game, remember, is a 6-10 game. Sunday at 1:10. Dodgers then will go off on the road. They'll play 2 in Oakland, a weekend in Houston, and then 3 more in the middle of the week with Cincinnati before coming home to play the Cubs and the Giants. Carl Crawford takes over in left field for Andre Ethier. Pedro Baez takes over on the mound. Here's Brandon Phillips. How good is he? Well, the only second baseman in Major League history with at least 1,600 hits, 170 home runs, and 170 stolen bases. Almost all of them are in the Hall of Fame, and Brandon Phillips' name is right in there amongst them. I mean, you're talking Ryne Sandberg, Joe Morgan, Craig Biggio, Roberto Alomar, Charlie Gehringer. Ray Durham and Brandon Phillips are on the outside looking in. How is he with the bases loaded? 3 for 5 this year. Hammers it foul. He has 7 RBIs with the bases loaded this year. In his career with the bases loaded, Brandon Phillips is hitting .357. He is a terrific player. He has a single and a double tonight. And a foul ball, 0-2. So Barnhart at third. Bourgeois at second. Hamilton at first. Oh, and 2. Hacks it foul. Brandon Phillips out of Raleigh, North Carolina. Lives in Stone Mountain, Georgia, which is just outside of Atlanta. Oh, and 2. And ball 1. By the way, Phillips has always done well. I'm not sure what it is right now, but I know at one time he was hitting .390 here at Dodger Stadium. He's a Gold Glover. Can do it all. 1 and 2. Little squirt job. Baez fumbles, drops, puts it, throws low, and Gonzalez makes a save. But he easily would have had a play at the plate. Instead, he couldn't do it, and it is 6-2 in favor of the Reds. So a bad break for the Dodgers. Baez in too much of a hurry. And there's Ellis dying for a throw at the plate and a chance to get a double play. So Phillips is out 1-3, but he's fortunate. He'll pick up a run batted in. Everybody moves up. So first base open. Bourgeois is now at second. Billy Hamilton down the line from third. There are a lot about stolen bases you don't steal home very often. Fouled away. I always remember Maury Wills stealing all those bases. And I said, did you ever try to steal home? And he said, no. And I said, why? He said, fear of failure. One ball and one strike. One and 2. Two down, 6th inning, 6-2 Cincinnati. Fastball at 97 really took off. So deuces wild. 2 balls, 2 strikes, 2 out, 2 on at second and third. And the Reds lead 6-2. Waiting on deck, Joey Votto. Foul that fastball back. 98 miles an hour. Meanwhile, Todd Frazier enjoying the moment. He's had a double, stolen base, scored a run. 2-2. And a drive to left, and that one's gone. Crawford watching it go halfway up the pavilion, and that tears it wide open. A 3-run home run, and it is 9-2 Cincinnati. It's amazing. You come in a big league game and you're throwing 98 miles an hour, and yet they're all over it. So Suarez drives it out, went down to get it, and then hammered it. For the young shortstop, he has 7 home runs, and he now 28 runs batted in. 9-2 in favor of the Reds after 2 back-to-back shutouts, which of course is what's been happening with the Dodgers. You have Kershaw, you have Greinke, and then hold on to your hats. 1 ball and no strikes. One and one. Votto has fly deep to left center. Ethier made a great running catch. Last time up, struck out and walked. One ball, 1 strike. Fouled away. Fastball jammed him at 98. It showed you it's a matter of inches. You throw 98 and jam one hitter. You throw another 98 and it's a little bit away. 3-run home run. Suarez enjoying a little spotlight. 2-2 the count to Joey Votto. Eugenio Suarez made that great play on Ethier in the 3rd inning, and now a big 3-run home run. 2-2. Off speed, dropped in for a strike. So from 98 to 88, and he nails Votto, but the damage is done. The bobble on the comeback hurt him, and then the home run wrecked him. And it's 9-2 Cincinnati. By Nissan. Choose Nissan today for great offers on our most exciting lineup ever. Choose Nissan.com. And by DraftKings. Play daily fantasy baseball for free on DraftKings.com. Use promo code BlueCrew for free entry. 9-2 in favor of the Dodgers as Cincinnati has pounded them of late. 2 runs in the third, 1 run in the fourth, 2 runs in the fifth, and 4 in the sixth. On Sandy Koufax's bobblehead night, the Dodgers very shy in pitching. Yasiel Puig followed by the pitcher spot, now occupied by Carl Crawford, and then it'll be Jock Peterson. Ryan Matthews picking up for Cincinnati. Matthews from Elk Grove, California. Went to Sacramento Community College. 6'3", 215. He'll be 32 in November. Originally signed by the Rockies. Oh, and 1 off the plate. Ryan was given a scholarship to Arizona State. He would take it for a little while if he didn't turn professional. But he was signed by the Rockies, so he did not go back to school. 2-1 to Yasiel Puig. Juan Nicasio warming up in the Dodger bullpen. Baez made 16 pitches. Avilan took the brunt of it. 3 runs charged to Avilan in that 4-run inning. 2-2. Matthews basically fastball, slider, a splitter. Three and two. Three and two to Yasiel. Little jammer. Fastball tied him up. Phillips tries, can't get him. And again, Puig is having problems with the fastball, and he's going to be into second base. So he was jammed and dribbled it by the mound, and he winds up at second base. With a great effort on the infield to get him, but no chance. So just a little ground ball. All-out effort by Phillips, a bouncer, and gets away from Joey Votto. And Puig is aboard, arrow all the way. So base hit, error 4. Puig at second base. Interesting, though, how the fastball is giving him such a bad time. Ball 1 to Carl Crawford. Andre Ethier, while he was in there, had a double, robbed of a hit, and flied to center. Ball 2. So Ryan Matthews makes a good pitch, still gives up a base hit to Puig, now falls behind. 2-0 to Crawford. Crawford batting .256, 2 home runs, 10 runs batted in. And that's going to be lined to center for a base hit. Puig to stop at third. Hamilton gets the ball back in. So a squib single followed by a line drive single. And the Dodgers now trying to make some noise, trailing 9-2. So they'll bring up Jock Peterson. Peterson has walked. It was an 8-pitch walk, and then came up the next time and hit a home run, an outside pitch, and he went with it and hit it into the left field pavilion. Jock, 22 home runs, 44 runs batted in. Right. 0-1. Nine runs, 10 hits for the Reds, including a home run by Suarez, doubles by Phillips and Suarez and Frazier and Barnhart. So the Dodgers hit by a storm of extra base hits. High fly ball down the left field line. Might be playable if Bird can get there, and he is. Tagging up and coming home on a good throw, and he is safe at the plate. Yasiel Puig. So Peterson gets a fly ball, sacrifice fly. Yasiel tags and scores. Marlon Bird taking dead aim, going right down the line. And Puig just seems to arrive at the same time and gets his hand before the tag. So it shows you how the Dodgers get a run. Puig hits a dribbler by the mound. The overthrow sends him to second. Base hit sends him to third. And the fly ball gets him home. So 9-3 Cincinnati. Strike to A.J. Ellis. So Jock Peterson has driven in 2 of the 3 runs. There goes the runner. The pitch is low. The throw is high. So the Dodgers give the Reds a little taste of their own medicine. Crawford stealing second base. Dodgers certainly having to work hard for their runs tonight. So Crawford safely in. Carl is 3 for 3 in that department. A.J. trying to pick him up. 1 ball and 1 strike. Fastball hit in the air to center field. Billy is there for the second out. And the batter now, Justin Turner. Turner came back to the lineup tonight. Came into the game in the 5th inning, got a standing ovation, and promptly hit the first pitch off the right field box seat wall for a long single, and came around to score the run on a base hit by Kike Hernandez. Boy, the Dodgers really missed him for 2 weeks. Jim Johnson warming up in the Cincinnati bullpen, but he is stopped now. That's a strike. So Puig an infield single. Hierro got him to second. Crawford singled him to third. Peterson's fly ball got him home. Now with 2 out, Crawford at second base. And a 1 ball, 1 strike count. One and one. Fastball rolled up to short, and there's Suarez. Boy, what a job he does. So he takes a hit away from Turner. The Dodgers get an unearned run. They will take it any way they can. And at the end of 6, Reds 9, Dodgers 3. Tomorrow's matchup will be very interesting. John Lamb will make his major league debut. He was having a big year in AAA, 10-2, and Alex Wood for the Dodgers with a record of 7-7. Game 2 of the 4-game series with the Reds tomorrow night. You know, something very unusual occurred in Kansas City last night. For the first time in 111 games, the Royals lost a game they led after 7 innings to Detroit. And tonight, don't you home, it happened again, this time to the Angels. So the Angels come from behind and pull one out against Kansas City. Todd Frazier, Jay Bruce, Marlon Byrd. And a strike. Jim Johnson picking up. It's been Latos, Avilan, Baez, and now Johnson. Jim, as you know, has certainly struggled since coming to the Dodgers. Fastball is promptly slapped into right field for a base hit. So Frazier comes up with his second hit. He has 2 hits, stolen base, and scored a run. Johnson has really struggled with the Dodgers. On paper, it's shocking to have an earned run average of almost 30. But in 3 2/3 innings, he has given up 12 hits and 12 runs, all earned. He's a fella who knows success. He had back-to-back years where he saved 50, saved 51 for the Orioles 3 years ago, and came right back with 50 the next year. He's 32, 6'5", 226. Good breaking ball, 0-2. Originally signed by the Orioles out of Endicott High School in New York, lives in Sarasota. Pitched a no-hitter in high school and was a volunteer firefighter and a handyman's assistant at one time in his life. 0-2. Foul that fastball back. Burke Badenhop begins to warm up in the Cincinnati bullpen, right-hander. They've used Sampson and Matthews. There he is. 0-2. In the dirt. Johnson basically fastball, a very heavy pitch, curveball, and an average change. One and two. Fastball just missed. Jim Johnson has a rather interesting hobby. He collects duck decoys, model ducks made to resemble the real thing. He has about at least 15 on display in his house. His father-in-law made 2 of the ducks, which he said are among his favorites. A wise son-in-law. 2-2. Fastball hit down the left field line, slicing foul. Carl Crawford finishing up for Andre Ethier in left field. And Bruce back to the plate. Bruce struck out on a high fastball, then he struck out on a breaking ball, and then last time up grounded out. Jay 0 for 3. Another foul ball. Bruce has 18 home runs, 64 runs batted in. However, he has also struck out over 100 times. He's the only Redleg to have struck out that many. 2-2. 3-2. So Johnson throwing hard, 96. Three and two. Frazier at first, and another foul ball. Nine pitch at bat. And a shot up the middle for a base hit. So Johnson comes in and gives up back-to-back singles, and the batter will be Marlon Byrd.
The fielder, number 9, Marlon Byrd.
Boy, when you see a fella throw as hard as Johnson is throwing, the only thing to think of is there's not enough movement, because the velocity on the pitch is certainly big league in every way. But as they say, the velocity doesn't mean anything if there isn't movement, not in the big leagues. Marlon Byrd struck out at a scoring fly ball, struck out again. And ball one. Byrd made a very fine running catch back in the 5th inning on a ball hit by Adrian Gonzalez. 1-0. Fouled away, 1-1. I mean, there's a nice easy 95, and yet he's struggling. One and one. Ball two. Two on, nobody out. Frazier and Bruce. Two and two to Marlon Byrd. Tucker Barnhart, the catcher, is on deck. And ball three. Two on, nobody out. 9-3 Cincinnati. It's been Latos, Avilan, Baez, and now Johnson. And ground ball hard, double play in the picture. They get two, and over to third goes Frazier. So Marlon Byrd in a 4-6-3 double play to get two quick outs. So Tucker Barnhart coming up. Frazier is at third. Barnhart has doubled, struck out, and walked, and he has scored twice. Ground ball up the middle. Jimmy Rollins is there, and Johnson's out of the jam. No runs, 2 hits, 1 left. 9-3 Cincinnati. The T-Mobile Data Strong fan photo of the game. Tweet your photo for a chance to be shown in an upcoming broadcast. Brought to you by T-Mobile. 9-3 in favor of Cincinnati. They go to the bullpen to bring in Bert Badenhop. Badenhop's out of Bowling Green, Ohio. Lives now in Perrysburg. Went to Bowling Green State University and was originally drafted by the Tigers. He is 32 years old, and as far as his major league career, he came up to the Marlins for a couple of years, went back down, came up to the Marlins twice, then went to the Rays, the Brewers, the Red Sox, and now with the Reds. When you look up in his bio, you see he grew up in Perrysburg, but he says, not really. I grew up in Greensboro, North Carolina, and my favorite thing to do is playing Little League Baseball. Well, he'll be facing Rollins, Hernandez, and Gonzalez. 0-1 to count to Jimmy. Lined out to right, lined out to second, grounded to first. And hits one into right center, but fighting the lights and making the catch is Jay Bruce. Wow. That was a tough play, and Jay made it look pretty easy.
Number 14, Kike Hernandez.
Yeah, he lost that in the lights for sure. He's talking to Billy Hamilton. See that? Squinting and then found it at his right knee. Look at that face. You can tell, where is that darn thing? Thank you. Tough play. So one away. They can do it all in the big leagues. Strike to Hernandez. His struck out, walk, singled. Ryan Matthews made 17 pitches while he was in there. Badenhop. He's 1-2. ERA of 3.7. And a shot to the hole, backhanded by Suarez, and Votto can't make the play. What a tremendous effort again by Eugenio Suarez. Wow. He had a half a year in the big leagues last year, and he's just been dynamite. Look at this play. Leaping, finding his first baseman, and Votto tried to backhand it and couldn't do it. Joey would be the first to admit he should have caught it. That was quite a play. Suarez wanted it, but it got away. So I guess they'll give Hernandez a base hit on that. And here's Adrian Gonzalez. Ball one. Scott Van Slyke now comes out after Gonzalez, remember, Ethier spot occupied by the pitchers. And a drive to center. However, Billy is there. Back to first base goes Hernandez. 2 down, and Van Slyke checking in. Up north, the Giants are leading the Nationals 3-1. That was a Ryan Vogelsong, Steven Strasburg game. Of course, for the Giants, if they can hold on and beat the Nationals, and if the Dodgers can't get out from under a 6-run deficit, the Giants would trail by 2.5. 1 ball and no strikes to Van Slyke. Scotty, 4 home runs, 21 runs batted in. That's a strike. In case you haven't been counting, this game tonight for the Dodgers, game number 115. 47 left. Fastball, soft line drive. Bird has to play it on a bounce, and Van Slyke comes off the bench to get a single to left. So Yasiel Puig coming up. Puig is grounded to short. Little fly ball to right. Jammed and squirted one by the mound. And it looks like a line drive in the box score. Hitting .244, 9 home runs, 34 runs batted in. J.P. Howell has been throwing in the Dodger bullpen. So Yasiel 1 for 3. Scored a run. Ball 1. Burt Badenhaupt. And a fly ball to right field. It was a fastball, and that's that. So Puig struggling against the fastball. Dodgers go down leaving 2, and at the end it's 7. It's 9-3 Reds. Billy Hamilton, Brandon Phillips fingered. Joe Peterson. Jock came back with a home run, but with Latos going out early, allowing 5 runs, Avilan gave up 3 more on the home run by Baez, and the Reds broke the game wide open. Skip Schumacher, the former Dodger, a very popular teammate here. Skip coming up against J.P. Howell. Skip, born in Torrance, lives in Ladera Ranch, went to UC Santa Barbara. And a strike. Skip's 35 years old, originally signed by the Cardinals back in 2001, and he was a big leaguer by 2005. And in a hole now, 0-2 to Howell. Skip with the Dodgers was given number 55, Oral Hershiser's old number, and he got it when he went to Cincinnati. One ball and 2 strikes. Skip, after 1 year, transferred to Loyola Marymount, then went on to California, Santa Barbara. 2-2, fouled away. Skip's first name for sure, Jared. He said, I haven't been called Jared since I was 5 years old. And ground foul. When he was with the Dodgers, that would be just 2 years ago. He was in 125 games. He had 263. 2 balls, 2 strikes. And just did get a little bit of that. Another former Dodger who coached for the Dodgers is over at third base, Jim Riggleman. Jim coached with the Dodgers from 2001 to 2004. 2-2. Ground ball, grass cutter. 1 away. So Schumacher grounds to first, 1 away. And the batter now will be Billy Hamilton.
Number 6, Billy Hamilton.
Billy Hamilton tonight, single to left, single to right, single to left. Knocked in a run, scored 1. He's been busy running around the bases, scoring 3 times. Little ground ball, foul, 0-1. Hamilton has 1 stolen base tonight. He picked that up in the 5th inning. So he now has 53 stolen bases to lead the league. Maybe 160 pounds. Rabbits don't usually get too big. One and one. Dodgers using Latos, Avilan, Baez, Johnson, and now Howell. Nine runs, 12 hits for the Reds, 3 runs, 9 hits for the Dodgers. Fastball whacked into left center field pretty deep. And looking up and watching it go in is Carl Crawford. And Billy Hamilton is 3/4 of the way around the bases. For Hamilton, his 4th home run of the year, and he's finished running. I mean, he came around as if he was stealing all the way. So Hamilton has a huge night, 4 for 4. 3 singles and a home run. Look at him run out his home run. He runs out a home run like he's afraid they'll change their minds. And a strike to Brandon Phillips. Phillips reached on an error, single to center, double to right, hit back to the box. With his RBIs tonight, Phillips now has 798 runs batted in. Remarkable player who has had a remarkable career. At Dodger Stadium, he has a total of 37 hits, 113 at bats, 327 batting average. Did that get him? No, he just did jump over it. So J.P. Howell giving up a home run. That's kind of news. Second home run he's given up this year. Chopper to the hole, long throw for Jimmy Rollins, and he's got the arm. Two down, and Eugenio Suarez, the young shortstop, coming up. Grounded to third, fly to center, double to left, and a 3-run home run in the 6th inning that broke the game wide open. Ball one. And a drive to center. Peterson trying to run it down. It's over his head, bouncing against the wall. Suarez into second base with a long double. So the 24-year-old from Venezuela, who was originally signed by the Tigers,
Number 19, Joey Votto,
has a big night. 2 doubles and a 3-run home run. Dodgers are being extra based to death. By the way, the Giants has just beaten the Nationals 3-1. Vogelsong went 5, Hunter Strickland 2, and then Romo and Casilla each combined to beat Steven Strasburg. Yimi Garcia gets up in the Dodger bullpen. Joey Votto is on the outside looking in. Joey has struck out twice, robbed of a hit by Ethier, and walked. No balls, 1 strike. One ball and 1 strike. Votto trying to stay above 300. Joey is going to be around a long time with the Reds. Just before the 2012 season, he signed a 12-year deal worth over $250 million, the longest contract in Reds history. Three and one. JP going 3-1 to Votto. He is 2 out, a run in, and Suarez at second base. And A.J. Ellis going out. For Joey Votto, he has the highest number of home runs when his team is ahead. He has 10 of his home runs with the Reds leading. He walks a lot, 18% of his plate appearances. He'll swing at the 2-0 a lot, so they'll probably let him swing at the 3-1. He has 119 hits. Swinging and base hit. Here comes Suarez, but they'll stop him at third as Crawford gets the ball back in. So Votto comes up with a base hit. Howell struggling here in the inning. He's given up a single, a double, and a home run.
21, Todd Frazier.
So first and third, 2 out, 1 run in. Todd Frazier, the batter. Yimi Garcia has been throwing in the bullpen, and we'll see now whether they make the switch. Yep, here comes Don. 10 runs, 15 hits for Cincinnati. 3 runs, 9 hits for the Dodgers, and we're in the 8th inning. So the Dodgers will be ready to use their 6th pitcher. Latos, Avilan, Baez, Johnson, Howell, and here comes Yimi. They're waving for Garcia. He'll be coming in. Howell's going out. We'll be back. Buy Jack in the Box. For a limited time, try the new Portobello Mushroom Buttery Jack with melted garlic herb butter. And buy Flex Alert. This summer, the power is in your hands. FlexAlert.org. 10-3 in favor of Cincinnati. The Dodgers bring in Yimi Garcia. He becomes their sixth pitcher in a game started by Matt Latos, who gave up 5 runs in 4 2/3 innings. For the Reds, having a feast, 15 hits, including 2 home runs, a bunch of doubles. And Garcia ready to face Todd Frazier. Grounded to short, double, stole third, and scored on a fly ball. Struck out and singled. So runners at first and third, 2 out, and Garcia trying to save a second run. Fastball popped in the air, foul. Here comes Ellis. No play. J.P. Howell, while he was in there, made 23 pitches. Tomorrow night in San Francisco, Max Scherzer will go up against Matt Cain. Big names who have struggled of late. Good fastball at 95. Scherzer 2-3 and an ERA of 3.8 over his last 8 starts. Cain an ERA of 5.5 in 7 starts since coming off the disabled list. Giants won tonight 3-1. And that's going to go to the backstop. Down to second base goes Votto. Holding at third is Suarez. It'll be a wild pitch. That thing just got away. Five doubles, couple of home runs, and the Reds flying high, 10-3. Fastball grounded, smothered by Rollins, makes the throw in time. So Frazier losing the hit. Fine play by Jimmy Rollins, and the Reds wind up with 1. Look at this. Head first dive, gets up, and still has the arm to throw out Frazier. We're heading for the bottom of the 8th, 10-3 Cincinnati. MLB.com at bat. That's the #1 app for live baseball. At bat up to the moment, at any moment, with in-game highlights, live look-ins, replay reviews, radio broadcasts, and more. Get MLB.com at bat for your smartphone or tablet. Bottom of the 8th inning, 10-3 Cincinnati. Manny Parra will be the 4th pitcher. Manny from Sacramento, left-handed all the way. Lives in Citrus Heights. 6'3", 205-pounder. Originally drafted by the Brewers, went to American River Junior College, committed to go to UCLA, but then signed with the Brewers. Carl Crawford will start it off. And good breaking ball strike, 0-1. Crawford singled in the 6th inning, stole a base. Big breaking ball, 0-2. Brewers like Parra. When they signed him, he got a bonus of about $1.5 million. That made him the highest priced draft and follow in Brewer franchise history. Dodgers have the book on him. Good four-seam fastball. He has a cut fastball, curveball, split finger, and a changeup. And he added a slider 2 years ago. So he has a deck of cards out there. 1-2. Fouled away. Manny Parra pitched a perfect game back in 2007. It was for the Nashville Sounds in the Pacific Coast League. 1-2. Fastball lifted, and coming over to get it and picking it off is Marlon Byrd. So one away here in the 8th inning,
Number 31,
and it'll be Jock Peterson coming up. Peterson walked, homered, and had a sacrifice fly. So he scored 1, knocked in 2. A.J. Ellis hits back of him, and Parra trying to close the deal here in the 8th inning. Dodgers scoring. They have 3 runs. Scored 1 in the 4th, 1 in the 5th, 1 in the 6th. Quiet before and quiet after it. And a strike, 0-2. Parra with a lot of experience. He came up to the big leagues in 2007 and has pretty much stayed up there. From the Brewers to the Reds. Time requested, I believe, by Peterson. Manny is 32 years old. He'll be 33 the end of October. One and two. And got him with a fastball at the knees. So Peterson called out on strikes. 2 down in the 8th inning. And the batter is A.J. Ellis. Ellis lined out to right, struck out, fly to center. 2 out in the 8th, 10-3 Cincinnati. Fastball missed, ball 1. Parr at one time with the Brewers was a starting pitcher. In 09, he was 11-11. The year before, 10-8. But after that, nothing happened. He wound up in the bullpen. High fly ball, very playable. Billy Hamilton. So a nice inning for Manny Parra. Down go the Dodgers, and we're heading for the 9th inning. Cincinnati 10 and the Dodgers 3. We have reached the 9th inning. It is 10-3 Cincinnati. Yimi Garcia, who came in to get the last out in the 8th inning, will now pitch the 9th. He'll face Jay Bruce, Marlon Byrd, and Tucker Barnhart. When the Dodgers come up in the 9th inning, they'll have Turner, Rollins, and Hernandez. And if anybody gets on, Adrian Gonzalez. So the Dodgers brought back to earth after 2 tremendous back-to-back shutouts by Greinke and Kershaw against the Nationals. The Reds overwhelming Latos and company 10-3. Pulled foul. Fastball in on the hands. Bruce was ready for it. Bruce, however, struck out twice, grounded out, and singled in the 7th inning. Ground ball up the middle. 0-1. Golf that thing. Hernandez makes the play. One out in the 9th. There you go.
Number 9, Marlon Byrd.
Put the Reds and the Dodgers together and you get a son. All right. Here's Marlon Byrd, struck out at a scoring fly ball, struck out again, hit into a double play. Made a couple of nice defensive plays in the outfield. Ball 1. Tomorrow night, Alex Wood, the young left-hander for the Dodgers, and an even younger left-hander, John Lamb, will make his major league debut. So with all the rookie starting pitchers, 14 in a row, John Lamb with the curly blonde hair will be out there on the mound. John, a 10-game winner this year in AAA. 1-1. 1-2. Bird had the sac fly in the 4th inning to score Frazier, who had stolen 3rd. Little dribbler. Jimmy has it. 2 down. So Hunter Tucker Barnhart, the catcher, doubled to left, struck out, walked, grounded out, and has scored twice. Tucker doubled inside 3rd and scored one of the 2 runs the Reds picked up way back in the 3rd inning, picking up the lead and never to relinquish it. Off speed, a little wrinkle to it for a strike. 0-1. $47,216 out here tonight. Fastball foul back. 0-2. To repeat, the Dodgers have Turner, Rollins, Hernandez, and maybe Gonzalez in the 9th. Little ground ball. Jimmy picks it up, feeds it to Gonzalez. Nice inning. 1, 2, 3. So we're heading for the bottom of the 9th with the Reds leading 10-3. Young shortstop Eugenio Suarez made a magnificent play, taking a hit away from Ethier, turning into a double play. That's when the game was very much alive. And then later on, after hitting 2 doubles tonight, Suarez hit a 3-run home run, and that was the killer. That broke the game wide open. So, our player of the game, deservedly so, Eugenio Suarez. He's put in quite a game. Pedro Villarreal will be coming in. He's out of Edinburgh, Texas, signed by the Reds back in 2008. He was a 7th-round pick. He went to Howard College. Finally came up to the Reds in 2012. He's been back and forth from Cincinnati to Louisville. And he'll be facing Justin Turner, who singled in his return in the 5th inning, grounded out in the 6th. So Sampson, Matthews, Badenhop, Parra, and Villarreal for the Reds. Sampson went 5, so he should pick up his 2nd big league victory. He'll be 2-1. Latos will suffer the loss. He'll be 4-8 and 0-2 as a Dodger. 1-1 to Justin. Villarreal 6'1", big 225. He'll be 28 in December. Fastball hit late and foul. Tomorrow night, Alex Wood, the left-hander for the Dodgers, and a young left-hander making his major league debut, John Lamb, for Cincinnati. Game 2 of the 4-game series. Fouled away. Talking as we were about Suarez, who had 2 doubles and a home run and 4 runs batted in. He had a pair of 3 RBI games, younger career, but tonight a new high for him, 4 ribbies. What a game he's had. One and two. Change 2-2. The Reds got Suarez by sending pitcher Alfredo Simon to Detroit. And they are certainly happy they have him. 2-2. Fastball in the dirt. 47,216, many of whom have hit the road. Giants 1. Dodger lead should change to 2.5. Foul that high fastball back. Though Justin, after 2 weeks being on the DL with a serious infection, he's now back. Dodgers thrilled to have him, and he's 1 for 2. Meanwhile, Gonzalez, Peterson, and Jock listening to McGuire. 3-2. Another foul ball. Meanwhile, Howie Kendrick, they also serve who only sit and wait. The Howie apparently is going to be out a while. The Dodgers, they'll get by, but they will certainly miss him. His steadiness defensively, great hitting in the clutch, a solid all-around full pro. Fastball up the middle. However, there's Brandon Phillips. 1 away. Jimmy Rollins, who will certainly miss Howie Kendrick, coming up. Rollins has had a tough night. I mean, he lined out to right, he lined out to second, hard ground ball to first, and a long fly ball to right. Put it all together, 0 for 4, and he has certainly hit better than that would indicate. And first pitch, he bangs it where they can't catch it. So Rollins, who hit every ball sharply, comes up with a single to right field. You can tell by his look, it's about time something fell for me. So Jimmy is single to right. And Kike Hernandez struck out and walked. Single to left, single to short. Kike dazzling at shortstop last night and gets first shot at second base, according to Don Mattingly. So far, so good. And a strike. Pedro Villarreal. No reason to give the ball to Aroldis Chapman when they're leading by 7. 0-2. Villarreal 1-3 with the league, an ERA of about 3.5. He struggled. 9 walks, 14 strikeouts. Breaking ball fouled away. 0-2. The Reds put a number on the Dodgers starting the third inning. 2 in the third, 1 in the fourth, 2 in the fifth, 4 in the sixth. And then they added one more in the eighth. Yasiel Puig struggling tonight. Got a squib single, little ground ball by the mound. One and two the count. Hard ground ball base hit. So Hernandez has had a walk and 3 hits. And the batter will be Adrian Gonzalez. One thing about the Dodgers, they might be leading, and they're leading the Giants by 3.5 for the moment. Figure it'll wind up 2.5. But if the lead stands, the Dodgers over the last 83 games, they would be 42-41. You talk about a treadmill. That's where they have been all that time. And yet, the consolation, they're still in first place. Ball one. Alex Guerrero comes out on deck. Gonzalez walks, single to right. Robbed of a hit on a fine running catch by Marlon Byrd, and fly deep to center. Sliced foul, 1-1. So Villarreal struggling with his control. Not that he's walked anybody, but you look and realize he's walked 9, struck out 14. That means he's fighting it. 1 ball, 1 strike. Reds trying to win their 51st game. Dodgers are on the edge of losing their 51st. And we have a 1-2 count to Adrian Gonzalez. Adrian kind of talking to himself. Certainly this game is designed to make you talk to yourself. And blow bubbles. Anything to reduce the tension. A lot better than chewing tobacco. 1-2. And a high pop fly. A trio of Reds. Suarez is going to take the play in left field. So he's really wound up. So Gonzalez fly ball to the shortstop. And with 2 down, Alex Guerrero is in the on-deck circle, and he'll be coming up. Van Slyke pinch hit in that slot and single to left back in the 7th inning. So Alice hitting .238. Foot in the door. Reds trying to close it. Guerrero with 8 hits as a pinch hitter. 3 home runs, 9 runs batted in. Pokes it foul, 0-1. Reds won the series from the Dodgers last year, and they're issuing notice they're going to be after him again. Despite the fact Cincinnati is 22.5 games behind St. Louis, and the Dodgers started 3.5 in front of the Giants. Ground foul, 0-2. Game about 3 hours and 32 minutes. Little girl thrilled to get a ball and a kiss from her dad, which is a lot more important. No balls, 2 strikes. One and 2. And a high fly ball to left. Bird is at the other end of it. And that'll be that. For the Dodgers, couple of base hits in the ninth inning, but nothing more. 10 runs, 15 hits for the Reds. Dodgers 3 runs, 11 hits, and 2 errors. The winner is Sampson. The loser is Latos. Tomorrow night, Wood and Lamb. That'll do it for us. We'll talk to you then. Until then, we wish you all a very pleasant good evening, everybody.